So today I am very excited to have a wonderful guest all the way from, dare I say, sunny Scotland.
Gloriously roasting 22.5 degrees Scotland.
Heat wave in Scotland, absolute heat wave in Scotland. So welcome to Stories That Inspire. And Spencer has a lot of stories to share, but I know the story he's going to be sharing with us today, and it's a doozy. Don't know where that word's come from, but that just popped into my head. So that's the word that you get. So thank you, Spencer. Thank you so much for sharing your time and being here with us.
Pleasure.
So tell us your story.
Okay, cool. Well, let's start with a bit of background. So the 26th of August will be 30 years since I started in financial services. So you will see this. I'll have been in financial services for 30 years, dealing with personal finances. So I'm an ex-bank manager, ex-financial advisor, ex-mortgage broker. So I've dealt with people's finances for 3 decades.
That's a long time. And you look like a baby. You don't look like you should have been in financial services for 3 decades.
Thank you very much. A little plug, I get royalties off this oil of Olay. It makes me look younger. I'm only kidding, I get nothing from them whatsoever. And I don't use the product either, but there we go. So yes, that's my background. I've always been good with figures. And I thought when I was at school that getting into finance would give me that financial security that we all crave for, okay? So I started at the bottom and worked my way up. So I started in retail banking, started as a cashier, went through the various ranks, became an account manager, someone that you come to for personal loans, bank accounts, then did mortgages, then on investments, then on to pensions as well.
So you were going the right direction. You were doing everything that you should do. Dare I use that word, should do.
Absolutely. And you progress, your knowledge increases, you get the qualifications to do it as well. And then went into management, and I thought, well, let's progress down that role. And then I got into project management. And when I got to project manager, I don't know how rated this show is, so I'll give you the clean version of it, okay?
Please.
I got to a high enough position at a relatively young age where I realized that my merits were no longer sufficient to continue to promote me. In other words, you had to change the color of your tongue from red to brown, if you know what I mean, okay? Or you had to sleep your way to the top. Now, for clarity purposes, I am married, I've got kids and granddaughter now as well. Most of the people higher up in the organization were men. They do not interest me in that way, shape, or form, okay? Very few ladies. So to sleep my way to the, sorry, I didn't mean that. To progress meant marriage problems, and there was very little choice. So I realized that for me to continue to provide for my family, at this point I've got 3 kids, that the only way was to leave employment and to become self-employed. I believe naively, as I now look back, that going from employed to self-employed was the way to build my financial security for my family and myself as well. And that was back in 2004. So a little bit of background. 2004 comes along, end of 2004, become a mortgage broker, self-employed. Fantastic, really good at what I did without being big-headed. I had lots of clients coming to me, referrals galore, and
that was the booming housing market. I mean, things were just flowing, booming. Nothing could go wrong.
Correct, absolutely. Everything was rosy. Really good at my job. Can work miracles. They called me the mortgage magician because I could make things happen. 2007, I had my best year ever. 2004, 5, and 6 were pretty good. 2007 was great. And then there was this little thing that happened. I have to be very careful because this could be broadcast anywhere. Some American banks remain, not all of them, but most of them were American banks, were naughty little people. They were doing naughty little things. And that naughty little thing impacted the world, as we now know. because they were lending to people they shouldn't have been lending to. But here in the UK, we are much more conservative with the small c. We are far more frugal. Maybe not. And then 2008 comes along, and then there's the financial crash. 90% of my income disappeared like that, almost overnight. I'd gone from, in my mind, from a hero from an income perspective to zero overnight. It wasn't my fault. Literally, the carpet was pulled from underneath my feet. Literally.
It's quite something to experience.
I don't even wish it on my worst enemy, because you can't, even if you're really good with finance, you can't adjust to that figure. You can adjust a 10% reduction, 20% reduction is a challenge, 30% really struggling, but 90%, you start to have, I didn't appreciate it at the time. I've always been the type of person that will work all the way through. I've been working since the age of 14. Every single day, other than weekends, and sometimes work weekends as well, has not been a day since 14 that I've not worked. So I believe there's a way to work my way through all of this. But you do start to get those self-doubts. You do start to think, well, actually, maybe I was just lucky in the right place at the right time, and you're not worth what you're getting paid. And that sort of stuff starts to play in your mind. And then 2009 was rubbish, 2010 was rubbish, 2011.
So you were still in the mortgage game. You were still staying as a mortgage broker.
Yes. Because I genuinely, naively believed that what the American investment banks were doing would impact all of the British banks, but it did. Because nobody knew who was buying whose mortgage book that was a good book or a bad book, so they all went, stop. I went from offering 45,000 different mortgages to 2,000. And of those 2,000, if you were my worst enemy, I wouldn't do it. And the 1,000 that you could get, because they were saying there was 2,000, there was only you could lend on one. The other, you'd have to be in a terrible position to do it. And I always looked at it, and again, looking back, you can say, I knew interest rates were going to come down. I didn't think they'd come down as low as they did. And I knew they would go back up again. Well, they still haven't really gone up yet, because the world economy is obsessed with keeping inflation low, and the best way is to keep interest rates low to keep inflation low. Then what will happen is inflation gets out of control, interest rates will rise. I didn't expect them to be as low as they are just now. So I say to all my clients, listen, just go to the variable rate. It'll come down when it hits the bottom before it goes back up again. That's when we're going to do. And I'm going to be like super busy, like ridiculously busy. I'm going to not have enough. I will need to work 40 hours a day to service my clients. But of course, that never happened. So, you're in a situation. My wife was working. She had a great job, to be fair. If it wasn't for her, we would have really struggled financially. She absolutely 100% kept our family going financially. And not to be old-fashioned or whatever, but when you've been bringing in good money to suddenly go on to nothing and then needing support, it doesn't sit well, because I've never been that type of person. Never ever been that type of person. So how do you get yourself through that? How do you mentally get yourself through that? Well, all you can do is what you're good at. And in my case, I'd started another business, and I was fortunate. That business is where I am today. So that's a little bit of background, but yeah, 2008 was a hellish time. So for everyone that's experienced hardships through COVID, I 100% get it. The difference, without sounding horrible here, is back in 2008, there was no governmental support at all for anyone.
There was no furlough, there was no help,
nothing.
Or anything.
Unless you're a bank. They supported the banks, but not the individuals. At least this time round, the individuals have been supported. There is a price to pay as a result of that through increased taxation over the next 6 to 7 decades. But yeah, nonetheless, there we go.
So having gone through this, to having to change your mentality about being supported for a while, having to, or in your words, had the rug pulled out from underneath you, what have you learned that you've been able to take with you? Because you come out of that with a positive attitude. You still started another business. You carried on going. You looked up. You didn't just, curl up your toes and that's it. I'm done. I quit. What did you learn through this? What kept you moving?
Winston Spencer Churchill, to get his middle name in, just for a little plug, okay? Quote, of many quotes, he said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Because if you stop, you'll always be there. You've got to keep going, knowing that we have 4 seasons in a year. We have the winter with spring, the summer, and the autumn. It's great in the spring and the summer, and even the autumn. Winter's never that great. It will just happen to be in my winter period, knowing that spring would be around the corner, which will then lead me to summer. Having that mindset of things will change, because they always do, as long as you hold on to that belief that it will change, and it does. But being able to do something about it as at the same time makes that difference. As I say, I was actually fortunate before the crash, 2008, I'd actually started my other business in 2006. I was running 2 businesses. But this business over here was peanuts, literally peanuts in comparison to what I was earning as a mortgage broker. But then what happens in 2011, I went, well, why am I still doing this? This is, you're going to end up with a bloody head if you keep hitting it against that brick wall, because that's what it was. It was a metaphoric brick wall. So if you keep hitting, and then you start to think, well, what can I do differently? You can only control the controllables. I couldn't control what the banks were going to do. So I thought, well, I can help people in other manners and means, because I've not changed as a person. Just maybe the vehicle which I'm using to help people needs to change to reflect the current climate. And that would be my message to anyone that's watching this. If you're in that sort of situation where you've done something for a long time, those skills are transferable to something else. Your personality is transferable to something else. Find out what that is, and you will get through it. And it will take time. It will take time, but it is.
And the skills that you learn as well. You've obviously learned customer care and how to look after your customers, from the bank, from the mortgage, to what you're doing now, to, this is all stuff you can take with you, as you said, and it's being open to seeing what's out there. How can you progress? What can you do? Do you need to change, or are you just going to keep hitting your head against that brick wall? It gets painful, and like you said, you just bloody all over your face and just keep going. You're just going to have a hell of a headache.
Absolutely. And you do have those 2 choices, and quite often people are so far in the woods they can't see the trees around them, and it's sometimes taking that step back. And the great thing with the knowledge that we've got accessible nowadays, when you compare it to even 2008, I'm massively into personal development. If you look at books behind me and things like that, when I left school, I was never very great at English, and I hated reading. But I'll tell you what, personal development got me through it for sure. Okay, there's many amazing people out there. You can go on YouTube, Spotify, there's books, there's a whole host of information out there that can get you through, plus individuals that can coach you through what you're going through, because almost everything that's likely to happen has been experienced by someone else who can give you the roadmap to guide you through that in the first place. Whether it's some free resources, whether you go and pay for a coach, whether you go on a course, there's a whole bunch of information out there, and that's certainly what's helped me. I mean, me speaking to you just now would be maybe not so bad. Speaking in a crowd, I would be very happy. I can speak in front of thousands of people. In fact, I do now speak in front of thousands of people, and it doesn't bother me, because it's about the personal development. It's really these 6 inches here that's the most important thing. It's not anything else. It's what you believe can be conceived.
Definitely, it is very much up to you. So you can make the choice of, am I going to get that help, whether it's free, Spotify, YouTube, coaches, what books, whatever it is, are you going to do it or not? And these are the choices that you are left with. You had these 2 businesses, right? Do I now build up the second business because you can see that this was your future, or not? Do I keep going or not? Do I learn? Do I look at opportunities or not? And this is what we have control of. This is what is the choices that we can make. And that's where we have control over us. we might not have a control over the banks in 2008, 9, 10, 11 and 12, I think even. We don't have control over COVID and over what's happening.
It's about personal development, very much so.
And it's the choices that we have. So I think I was talking about we don't have control over COVID and, lockdowns or all this that's going on, that the situation that we are in right now, but we have a choice of how we react to it.
All right.
And this is powerful. And you took the choices that you had and you chose to keep going, to move forward, to learn, to grow. And this is where the lessons can become very strong and powerful, because how many times, or for myself, I know there were so many times, well, it's not my fault, it's out of my control, it's their fault, it's, blame it on my mother, blame it on my father, blame it on my teachers, blame it on my boss, blame. And you can blame anybody and everything. You can blame the weather, you can blame all sorts. And then just think, but nothing's working.
Yep.
Until you shift that and it's like, okay, we've had 2008 crash, what can I do? We've had COVID, what can I do? And I mean, these are drastic measures, but it can be, I don't like my job, what can I do about it? Lose a client, what can I do about it? It's how we are reacting. So you said that you were supported by your wife because she had a good job at that time. Yep. So that must have been quite an experience, especially as a male who's used to being the breadwinner, who's bringing in the money and doing what, again, I use that word, should be doing, what society says should be happening, and then having to have that shift in your mind. How did you get through that? How did you find a way to, because that's quite a personal thing. That's not so much okay, I've got to just start to earn money or build my business up again, but that's quite a personal thing that you've got to go through.
Yeah, and you're right, it is. There'll be many men who experience that, and society nowadays is, in my opinion, is far more equal than it ever used to be. So there should be less of that pressure. Society's pressure, you would think, however, I know that's not reality. But the great thing is, my business, I knew it was going to take a longer term, but I knew this time what I've been trying to do for all of these years to build up financial resilience so that anything like a COVID situation were to happen, we would not be in a financial recession of the 2008 scenario. So, to be honest with you, in the last 15, 16 months or so, since COVID's come along, my business has flourished. Now, people might be saying, well, that's all right for you, but bear in mind, back in 2000, I lost 90% of my income, okay? I made a conscious decision that it would take something that I would still not earning the money I was in 2007, I'm going to say, okay? But I've built a foundation that means there's a recurring income that comes in every single month of what I've done in the past. So it doesn't matter so much what I do today or yesterday or last week or last month. It's more about last year, last decade, because it's building up that foundation. So I suppose in my mind, it's like, well, I'm not earning the money I was earning before. However, what I am doing this time, I'm building the house properly. I've dug down, I've got the foundations. I found a vehicle that will allow me to build proper foundations, not a pack of cards, where literally one blow and the whole thing goes. I've built a foundation. When you build foundations, the bigger the building you want, the deeper your foundations need to go. Sometimes you need to get to where you want to go into life, you have to really go low before you can build a skyscraper or whatever. So for me, it was relatively easy. I'm not going to lie, but people struggle a lot more than me. But for me, I knew that what I was doing this time round was not just building an income for today, not just an income for the future, but a generational thing that I'm leaving a financial legacy for my family. That's what my business does now.
Do you think that you would have had the same passion and drive if you hadn't gone through 2008 and experienced that rug coming up from underneath you?
I think I would have had it, but not to the level, is an honest answer. Because I've always been forward thinking. Because my investment and pension background, I always knew I wanted to have something that was going to come in so that in my 50s I could do whatever I want. In my 40s I could do whatever I want. I love to travel. This has been horrendous from a lack of travel, but I mean, there's a lot of people who suffered a lot worse than that. I'm not belittling it at all. Like I just haven't been able to go abroad. Whoopie do. I just love to do it. But to be able to do that sort of thing, you need to have the time and the money. That's why I'm known as the time and wealth creator, because I create both time and money. Well, you don't create time, you give yourself the opportunity to spend time doing what you want. Definitely. So it would have been there, but would I have been at the stage I'm at now had 2008 happened? No is the answer. It would have taken longer to get to where I am today.
Because you would have had that experience of,
yes.
Now what? Now what?
Yes. And also, it made me realise, again, as I say, naively went into financial services thinking that this is what's going to lead to that, and then realised I was building a pack of cards as a whole, instead of strong foundations, which is what I now do and teach and coach others to do exactly the same.
Definitely. So what little nuggets can you share, some tips of anybody who's watching this and just thinking, how or what should I do, or can I do it? What can you share that people can take away?
A few things. Firstly, look at the people that you're surrounded by. I remember many, many, many years ago, hearing a quotation, you are a reflection of your 5 closest friends. So look at your people you associate with the most and think, do they have what I'm looking for? And if the answer is no, you need to start to look for other people. Okay, so that's tip number 1. That sounds horrible. You can still have them as friends, but you spend less time with them and you start to associate with people who will pull you in the direction that you want to be pulled in.
And that sometimes includes family.
100%. Also, 5 years from now, you will be, as a result of the 5 people you associate with, but also the books and personal development you take on board. To say, I could list, depending what people are into, I could list authors and loads of stuff, but there's so much out there, just go and figure it out for yourself. But there are some, how can I put this? Jim Rohn, okay? Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. Go on YouTube him, okay? One of the best gentlemen I've ever. Tony Robbins being another one. Dean Graziosi. These people are amazing in what they do, and you can get access to a whole bunch of free stuff. So go and have a look at them, and they will get you to think. The key thing is to think differently to where you are. They say by the time you're 5, you've formed something like 80% of all the things you do thereafter. Just think about it. Your first 5 years of your life reflects 80% of the habits that you now do. By the time you're 18, it's 95%, I believe. So you think you're doing something, but actually you're just forming into a habit. And that could be a good habit. Cleaning your teeth every day. It's a good habit. But you could equally be doing something that doesn't serve you, that you learned when you were 6 years of age. Now, ask yourself, as a grown adult, does that serve you any longer? People don't believe this now, I was a shy individual. I got bullied in primary school. That's why I took up martial arts when I was younger, so I could defend myself and carried on, from there. I was that shy person. I was brought into the world where children should be seen and not heard.
Yep.
Which means you're shy, okay? Which means you observe and you speak when you're spoken to. Now, given what I've been doing for the last 3 decades, that doesn't serve me no more. It's a bit like don't speak to strangers. If I still believe that, which is perfectly fine for a 7-year-old, you and I wouldn't be speaking because we were strangers at some point in the past.
So definitely.
Be aware of the patterns that you do without thinking. Take time to think. Does that serve me now? Does that get me to my end goal? That then leads me to the next part. Have an end goal in mind. Where do you want to be 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now? If you have no idea where you're going to go, how on earth are you ever going to know when you reach it? You laugh, but it's true.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Absolutely. I'm picturing turning up at an airport and saying, I want to go on holiday.
Correct.
I got no passport, no luggage, nothing. You got to plan it. And it's the same. You really do have to plan where you're going. You need to plan. It's like a trip. It's like taking a holiday. You plan it.
And even the airplane that you get on, you know, the pilot gets you up off the ground, okay? And then they get to 35,000 feet or whatever it is, and they stick it on autopilot, okay? And you're heading from London to New York, for argument's sake. That autopilot constantly course adjusts because of turbulence, because of wind. And then the pilot takes over and lands it again. That's pretty much how it goes, okay? But that is because the end destination was New York in that particular instance. If you just said, I want to fly from London to America, and you just headed in that general direction, you could end up in Brazil if you weren't constantly course correcting. Are you achieving what you want to do? For me, it's really simple. I want to ensure that my family, long after I'm gone, will be able to never, ever, ever experience what I experienced in 2008. They will have a recurring income that will mean that they don't have to worry about mortgages and bills. They have that money coming in automatically. That is where my course is set. That is my goal. That is my objective. And along the way, I help millions of other people do the same at the same point in time. But that's the number one reason to my family. But that's my end goal. So have the end goal in mind, and then you can walk backwards and see where you need to be.
And going on your course correction analogy, that is what getting to your end goal is all about. Is you can think, okay, I'm going to be financially independent by the time I'm 50. Have your plan, how you're going to do it and everything else. But along the way, you are going to be making course corrections. Otherwise, you're going to come off course. And that, like you said, the pilots take off, they set autopilot, and the plane or autopilot course corrects the plane. If it didn't, they could end up in Alaska or anywhere else. And this is why travel is such an amazing analogy that you can use for planning your goals, planning your future, but you do have to course correct. It is just what happens. You had a goal, COVID hit, course correct. You had a plan, 2000 hit, course correct. It is just about, and most probably things in between. I'm sure there was life in between, 2008 and 2020. But you've course corrected along the way. Might be a little tweak here, might be a lot of action. And this is where it's really, if you know your end goal and you're watching what you're doing, you know if you are on target, you know if you are on plan. And sometimes goals change. They can change for whatever reason. They can change or they can be tweaked. And this is why it is important to really know what it is you ultimately want. You wanted financial freedom for you and your family. How you did it wouldn't matter if it was, I don't know, selling gold bars on the street corner or flipping burgers. How you did it is just the how, but you knew what the end result was.
Yeah.
So you find a way to make it happen.
And you've got to have your why. I mean, one of the best things that I it was about 13 years ago, I was on a course, and a gentleman said, if time and money was no object, what would you do, be, or have? 20 minutes, write down what you do, be, or have, and you've got no restrictions. And you're like this. And then after 2 minutes, you're like, okay. Oh. And as time goes by, you take longer to write it down, because what happens is you suddenly can't believe that's going to be your reality. That's the problem. So the first things are obvious: pay the mortgage off, pay any loans off, pay any credit cards off.
Go on a holiday.
Go on a holiday. I mean, and I have got, and one of down there behind me, okay, I've actually got all the things I wrote down, and I haven't achieved all of them. And some of the goals that I wrote down were not financial, they were experiential. In fact, many of them were experiential. One was to go into space. Now, I wrote that 13 years ago, I think 12, 13 years ago. At that point, going into space.
It's happening.
Correct.
Look at Richard Branson and
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, yeah. Now, I actually genuinely have a Virgin Galactic t-shirt that I've had for 10 years because I'm going to go into space. Now, it's $450,000 US to go and do so, and you're in space for a few minutes, okay? And you're thinking, my God, that's extravagant. But you know what? by ensuring that I've got the income to do that, what other things are going to happen
just money
along the way. Money's irrelevant. It's what you do with money that's the most relevant thing. It's allowing you to experience or to help others or both. That's what money is. It's just an exchange medium. That's all it is. So yeah, you've got to take time out every now and again and say, what is it I want to achieve? The next 1, 3, 5, 10, a lifetime. What do you want? Then you can go forward. But reach out to you. Yeah, hello, reach out to you for that matter. You didn't ask me to plug you, but we'll reach out to you.
Thank you for the plug. I'll take any plug. So I'm assuming that you've not done this on your own. I'm assuming you've had help along the way, mentors, coaches, guides, the odd kick up the butt.
Mm-hmm. Usually my own size 10, yes.
So could you have done this alone?
What I do is not a business that you do on your own anyway. Unfortunately, I've got a huge team of people that I help coach, develop, train to get what I'm looking to achieve as well. But there's been people that have already walked those steps that I've been able to watch and to learn and to decide my style of the same thing. And then that's the people within our business. There's been other people globally, because our business is UK-based business. There's other people globally that I've gone to. I've gone and paid thousands and thousands and thousands to go be in places like Las Vegas or Orlando or whatever, to listen and observe and be around the best people in their field. And to the extent that, some of these people I can call friends, these people that I looked up to, like, oh, and then I find that they're real people, like we talk to.
They put their trousers on the same way you do?
Usually. So it's, there's too many people. It starts with a family. You can't do
something like this on your own. You cannot run business on your own. Whether you are self-employed, one-person band, you still need to have people around you, mentors, guides, people who inspire you, people who you read. It doesn't matter. They can be physical or they can. Jim Rohn, I know Jim Rohn. I know him personally. He's been dead for a while, but I know him personally.
12 years now, I think, yeah.
Jim Rohn, he's guided me because he has words that he's passed along. So you do need to have people around you to really keep you going, find ways, and who can occasionally give you that, what, come on, pal, here's your proverbial kick up the rear end.
And motivation, because that's what you taught me, motivation. There's external motivation. One of the things we get is like free holidays. Okay, if you do a certain amount, you get free holidays. That behind me is one of the free 6-star cruises that I've been on, as an example. Okay, that's an external motivation, but the best motivation in the world is internal motivation. It is your burning desire.
That's your why.
Correct. That is the most important thing. When we talk Jim Rohn, I tell you another gentleman I would recommend for those that are looking at financial independence is Robert Kiyosaki. Kiyosaki spelled Kiyosaki. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's his original book, which is great, and it tells you about how you're the rich dad and the poor dad. Great book. But the book that turned me on to where I am now is the cash flow quadrant, where he explains there are 4 ways to generate income. Employed, we know about that. That's the one area where you're taxed the most. You have the least amount of security. It's supposed to be if you've got a job, you're secure. Nonsense. Redundancies galore. You're at the beck and call of somebody else. Second quadrant is self-employed or specialist, where you are basically the buck stops with you, but you pay less tax, but you've got more flexibility. I thought I'd made it when I got there, but then I read the B, which is the big business owner, where you've got over 500 people in your organization. That's, I've surpassed that some time ago, because suddenly it's no longer just about you, it's about the cumulative effect of everyone else. You talked about Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic. Richard Branson doesn't drive the trains or fly the planes and all the rest of it as such. He has a team of people. He has the vision to go forward. He's a business owner, a big business owner. And then there's investors. That's obvious. If you've got investments, that's working for you whilst you're doing something else. So you need to be, in my humble opinion, if you want financial security or fast track your life, get the cash flow quadrant, be in the right-hand quadrant, go for being a big business owner and an investor. You have to go through the other quadrants first.
Make your money work for you and not you
Correct.
working for your money. And this
Correct.
is something that is very much, I think people are starting to realize and starting to think of, or maybe I'm just starting to hang around the right people that they're starting to think like I do. And that is about, you know, making your money work for you instead of you working for your money. So before we leave off, any last words of wisdom? You shared so much with us, and I'm interested in that book. I've not heard of that book. I've heard of Robert Kiyosaki and his other ones, but I've not heard of that one. And your, you know, about having your why and knowing where you're going and what you've learned on your experiences. Is there a final little nugget that I can get out of you?
Okay, cool. Before I give you that final nugget, I can tell you, okay, you go into my LinkedIn profile. I actually did a little video on the cash flow quadrant. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, there's a little video explaining the cash flow quadrant, so you don't need to read the book. So it's really short and precise and to the point. So go to it, check that out. Henry Ford said before he invented Model T, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, either way, you are correct. Just choose.
I love that. I love that. What a way to end with Henry Ford. Thank you so much, Spencer. I've really appreciated you coming, you spending some time with me and us and sharing your journey, sharing what you've learned. And I'm sure we will be doing this again because I know you've got some more stories to share and stories to tell. But thank you. I really appreciate this. And thank you for taking the time to watch. And hopefully you've got some nuggets out of today and you will really start to find inspiration from the stories and the experiences that Spencer has had. Until next time, take care. Bye.